Is the new D&D Monster Manual a worthy upgrade, or should you hold on to your money? Hey there, adventurers. Welcome to Short Rest Studios, where we believe fun builds community. My name is Judd, and today we're comparing the 2014 and 2025 editions of the Monster Manual. You want to stick around until the end of this video, because not only am I going to tell you which is the clear winner, you're also going to see two versions of my favorite D&D monster go head to head. And just so you know, I received nothing from Wizards of the Coast to make this video. I had to buy the book just like you did. The 2014 Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual is 352 pages, contains more than 300 monsters, and at the time of its original release was a great tool for 5e and an all-around great book. Maybe it hasn't aged particularly well, but honestly, neither have I. I still love it. The 2025 Monster Manual is 384 pages and contains more than 500 monsters, including 75 new ones. Now let's see if it can live up to, or hopefully surpass, its predecessor. First, let's compare the introductions. The 2014 intro is 8 pages with sections covering how to use the book, the definition of a monster, habitats, 5 full pages explaining stat blocks, and legendary creatures. Kind of a lot of text. The 2025 intro, 5 pages. You've got how to use a monster, this beautiful stat block overview, followed by about 3.5 pages of explanation, and that's it. Some of the same information is here, it's just much more succinct. It leaves out the lengthy descriptions of habitats, special senses, and special abilities that honestly probably weren't necessary anyway. But the stat block overview is pretty genius. Why couldn't we have had this before, Wizards? You've got an example stat block with a brief explanation of each section, and it's really helpful. Since we're here, let's talk about those new stat blocks. There was a lot of excitement about updated stat blocks before the 2025 manual was released. Thing is, they're really not that different from the 2014 manual. Honestly, it was kind of a letdown. The biggest differences are the 2025 manual includes the initiative bonus in the combat highlights section, which is the very first section after the name and general details. And in the abilities section, not only do we have the monster's ability scores and modifiers like we had in 2014, but we also have their saving throws. When you're running a game and you need to scan a stat block quickly during combat, both of those changes are extremely helpful. But you know what else would have been helpful? Maybe more helpful? Move the actions up. They're still all the way down there at the bottom. Wouldn't it be nice to look at AC and hit points and, oh, right there, it says this monster has multi-attack. Yeah, that would have been great. Sorry, obviously, I've been bottling that up. I do, though, appreciate that actions are listed with saving throws or attack bonuses and damage up front, with less verbiage than in the 2014 manual. These are still really long stat blocks, though. There are 75 new monsters. I don't have enough fingers. There are totally new ones like Animal Lords, Blob of Annihilation, the Colossus, and the Elemental Cataclysm, but a lot of the new ones are variations on existing monsters like the Archhag, the new 4 varieties of vampire, and the Primeval Owlbear, which can fly. Stole my idea. I know I'm not the only one to do that, okay? Still, I bet the Primeval Owlbear doesn't poop on you in flight, giving you disadvantage on stealth checks. It's because of the smell. Hey, hit that like button if you would have disadvantage on stealth checks. And if we look at the new monsters, several of them are Titans. And that's your first indication that the monsters in this monster manual are going to be more deadly than their 2014 predecessors. In the 2025 manual, rather than the old manual's sections for larger groups of monsters like dragons and giants, they're all just listed alphabetically. The Copper Dragon and all its variants, Wormling, Young, Adult, and Ancient, are found under C. Fire giants are under F. I did like having, say, dragons grouped together, but I also completely get why they did this. In the heat of the moment, your first instinct may be to turn to G when you're looking for a gold dragon stat block. But this actually leads me to the appendices, specifically Appendix B, the monster lists. I told you I liked having the groupings of larger monster types together. Well, this is even better. Here you've got lists like stat block conversions that show you which updated monsters match to 2014 monsters that aren't in the general listings anymore. Sometimes this is due to the new variants that have been added. Sometimes it's because that monster just isn't there, as in the case of one particularly notable missing monster. We'll get to that in a moment. There's a list of monsters by their habitat. Say you're planning an Arctic adventure. There's a list for it. You can pick an axe beak, or a brown bear, or a manticore, or a frost giant. You've got monsters by type and monsters by group. That's where you'll find those groupings of dragons and genies and titans. And possibly most helpful of all, monsters by challenge rating. Once again, why is this new? Let's talk about the art. The 2014 art, it was great quality, mainstream, polished fantasy art. Nothing wrong with it. The first time I saw it, I enjoyed it. But because the monster manual is organized like a dictionary or an encyclopedia, which makes perfect sense, with the exception of a few art pieces thrown in for flavor, the images included in the entries are like mugshots. The monster's just there in kind of a forced pose doing nothing interesting. But the art in the 2025 manual is another story altogether. It feels much more dynamic. Nearly every piece, until you get to the animals section in the back, is a scene, and every scene is full of action. These monsters aren't just posing, they're lunging and leaping and devouring. The monster manual was my entry point to D&D back in the day. It's always inspired me. With the 2014 manual, reading the lore of the monsters is what inspired me. But the 2025 art immediately grabs me. It feels like adventure. It inspires me. I love this art. Speaking of inspiration, how about an inspired new setting to drop these monsters into? The Wandering Tavern is a sprawling 180 plus page system agnostic Studio Ghibli inspired floating city from today's sponsor Homie and the Dude. You get optional D&D 5e stats, huge battle maps, loads of unique NPCs, and cool magic items to protect yourself from the twisted spirits stalking the halls. With plot hooks that lead to dark forgotten secrets, black market empires, and more, there are endless tales to tell in the Wandering Tavern. Hit the link in the description and use code SHORTREST to get 10% off your order. Among the other notable changes, you'll find that just about all the monsters have been revised to be easier to run. We'll see an example of that in a minute when we compare the 2014 and 2025 versions of my favorite D&D monster. The creature types of some monsters have been changed. For example, goblinoids are no longer humanoids. They're fae. That means, among other things, goblins, hobgoblins, and bugbears are not vulnerable to spells like hold or charm person or calm emotions. But they are vulnerable to others, like protection from evil and good, magic circle, and divine word. Since most of the ones they're no longer vulnerable to are low-level spells, this gives them an advantage over lower-level spellcasters that they didn't have before. There are also some notable absences, like orcs. Yes, orcs are now a playable species in the player's handbook. They're not listed in the 2025 monster manual. I'm not going to say any more about this because a lot of smart people have already talked about it. If you want a good perspective on it, I'll drop a link to Bob Worldbuilder's video in the description. And this is the moment I know you've been waiting for, a head-to-head comparison of the old and new stat blocks for my favorite D&D monster. This will showcase some of the more granular changes, and right after, I'll tell you which monster manual I think is the clear winner.
Ladies and gentlemen, rules lawyers and min-maxers, it's time for the main event. In the left corner, hailing from the depths of the Underdark, the Grey Matter Gourmet, the nightmare from your nightmares. It's the 2014 Mind Flayer. And in the right corner, weighing in with brand new stats, the Scion of Psionics, the Master Mind Blaster. It's the 2025 Mind Flayer. Round 1.
The Mind Flayer Arcanist, the single Mind Flayer variant, shows up in the 2014 monster manual in a little box down in the corner. In the 2025 manual, it's basically the same, but this time, he gets his own stat block. Does this guy count as one of those new monsters?
Round 1 goes to 2025. Round 2.
The lore for these two, while shorter in the 2025 manual, is almost the same, except for one interesting change. The 2014 manual says solitary mind flayers are likely rogues and outcasts, Most illithids belong to a colony. 2025 words it a little differently. Mind flayers work as lone schemers in mysterious cabals or as part of worlds-spanning illithid conspiracies. What does this mean for your campaign? Maybe it's technically more likely for characters to encounter only one mind flayer.
Round 2 ends in a tie. Round 3.
Now we get to the stat block itself. The first change we encounter, initiative, is up from +1 in 2014 to +4 in 2025 thanks to a +3 proficiency bonus. That's a new thing. The 2014 Mind Flayer has 71 HP and 13 D8 plus 13 hit dice. 2025 has 99 HP and 18 D8 plus 18 hit dice. Ouch. What's this in the speed section? The 2025 Mind Flayer can fly. 2014 doesn't exactly have that. We'll see why in a moment. On abilities and modifiers, it's a close fight. They're the same, except the new Flayer gets +4 on dex saves, which again, thanks to that proficiency bonus, and +1 on con saves. Skills, the 2014 has 2 more skills than the new kid. 2025 no longer has deception or persuasion. And of course, right here next to challenge rating, the 2025 Illithid now has a proficiency bonus listed. I'm not sure next to CR was the most helpful place to put that bonus, but I do appreciate that it's there. And here's something else I appreciate. Actions in the 2025 stat block are listed with saving throws or attack bonuses and damage up front with less verbiage than in 2014, making it a lot easier and faster to find the information you need. I'd rather see that info up there with combat highlights, but it is an improvement over 2014. Now we start to see some real damage, pun intended. Who am I kidding? The pun's always intended. The tentacle attack goes from 2d10 plus 4, an average of 15 damage in 2014, to 4d8 plus 4, with an average of 22 for the new Flayer. Interestingly, the DC to escape grappling goes down from 15 to 14, and there's no longer a saving throw to avoid being stunned. Extract Brain isn't a melee attack in 2025. Instead, it's a saving throw, and a 2025 Mind Blast does 6d8 plus 4, an average of 31 damage, instead of 2014's 4d8 plus 4. This Mind Flayer is definitely deadlier than its 2014 cousin. Spellcasting in 2025 has moved to actions, and the new Flayer no longer has the Levitate spell. Oh yeah, that's because they can fly. So that means the Mind Flayer doesn't have to take an action to hover, making it easier on the Flayer and on the DM. There's one example of making a monster a little easier to run.
In 3 rounds, the winner by knockout is the 2025 Mind Flayer.
I did that Mind Flayer comparison to show you that in the 2025 Monster Manual, monsters are deadlier and more streamlined than in 2014. On top of that, the art in the 2025 manual, there's no comparison. It's so much more energetic and inspiring. While the changes to the stat blocks could have been more dramatic, I mean, let's face it, they're pretty minimal. They are still improvements over the 2014 book. Even the introduction gives us more useful information while reducing the wall of text. And man, Appendix B with those monster lists is a home run. Adventurers, to me, the clear winner in this battle is the 2025 Monster Manual. I've had my issues with Wizards of the Coast, but they knocked this one out of the park. Please, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell. You can also support the channel by joining the Adventurers Guild on Patreon. Hey, here's another video on monsters. I'll see you next time on Short Rest Studios.